Going to get going here this morning. Good morning. Welcome to committee. We do have a quorum. I know a few folks are running late. That's winter in Minnesota. So I'm looking here at need somebody has read the minutes here to offer a motion for approval. Do we have such a motion? Need
So
some.
moved.
Oh, thank you. Representative Acom moved the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Meetings are approved. Minutes are approved. And now we have our next, and I see we have Representative Tabke. We at the table up there where we have something procedurally to go through here today, and it's regarding House File 680, Representative Tabke's bill, and we did hear this bill last week. But a procedural error we need to fix. We tabled the bill and moved on to hear others. You may recall, maybe not, but the other bills. And then when we came back, we didn't vote to take it from the table. So I'm going to ask for a motion to bring 680 from the table.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Fabian, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so we have 680 in front of us. And I will move that House File 680 be placed on the general register as we proceed. I'm sorry, what is your question?
Mr. Chair, I think the amendment has to be moved.
Yeah, no, I'm right there, so. But when we dispense with the bill, it's gonna go to the general right, that's what I'm trying to get at, so, but thank you. So we do have an amendment, yes. And Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and to be clear, we were working off of the DE1 amendment, which I think we did properly move and place forward, just so everyone's clear that that piece was done. So my amendment is A2. This was the amendment we had a discussion here in committee, and we laid the bill on the table, and some of us stepped out in the hallway together and worked on an agreement that everyone was happy with. And so that had been an oral amendment at our last meeting. With the benefit of time, it's now that exact amendment is now before us in A2, so you can see it in writing, and hopefully not controversial, and just will move the A2 amendment.
Everybody has the A2 in front of them, and does everybody have a recall on what we're talking about here? This was an agreed upon amendment. So no further discussion. All in favor of the A2 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment's adopted. So you're going to ask one more time, any further discussion on House File 680? Any closing questions? Representative Tabke? Hearing none, I renew my motion, the House File 680 be placed on the general register. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Whoop. Say again? Oh, it's yep. House File 680 as amended. Back up there. Be placed on the general register. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We got it where it needs to go, Representative Tabke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Did you say any words during? That was us. There was. Okay, last time.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we do have quite a few bills to hear today, and I think everybody's been advised we're going to have another hearing this evening. In our Representative Sundin,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
House File 92. And we are going to lay this bill over for possible inclusion. Please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is provides for another opportunity for sporting activity in the state of Minnesota. It's something I'm not really familiar with. I've never been a diver. I've never pulled the trigger on a spear gun, but I'm responding to the request of a constituent that would like to expand his opportunities for outdoor enjoyment, and I'd like to introduce Kyle Deinhardt. He's the son of the catfish king of Carleton County, an old friend of mine. But Kyle will explain how he became interested in this sport, and then we can talk about the intent of the bill.
Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Hi, I'm Kyle Deinhardt. We went on vacation to Hawaii years ago, and I had a lot of fun snorkeling, and thought next time I come back, I want to be scuba certified. I want to do a lot more, and then also I'd like to, harvest my own protein for dinner. Now I'm scuba certified, and I'd like to expand that to Minnesota. I don't think it'll be a detriment to the resource. I don't think there's enough people that would be doing it to put a tax on it at all. It's another recreational opportunity, another reason to get people outdoors. It'd be another revenue resource for the DNR. It works well in other states. There's not an issue with it anywhere else that I'm aware of. So,
If I may, how many other states do you know, or either testifier or Representative Sundin have this?
I don't have a full list of where it is allowed, but I know our neighbors to the west in South Dakota, I believe North Dakota. I know Nebraska does. Probably Montana. I haven't had time to research it thoroughly. I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. I just was curious, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe the testifier should explain the mechanism that is used for taking fish and explain the tether process and all of this. So these are safety safeguards that are in place. So
Sounds good. Please, proceed.
So what it would entail would be either a elasticity driven, possibly pneumatic driven. I'm not a big fan of those. But it's the metal spear harpoon that's tethered to the weapon. So you're looking at a 10 to 15 foot effective range. It's not, it's not very far. You need clear water to be able to clearly make out your target and be able to make a decent shot on them, enough to actually catch them. So.
If you hit it, it ain't swimming away.
No, it's tied directly to your weapon, or you could even tie it to yourself. But if you didn't have a tether on it, you'd lose a lot of darts.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Sundin.
Mr. Chair, I've seen these devices used, not firsthand, but when the people that have harvested fish come in from the ocean down in Jamaica, and a lot of people use this mechanism for, again, a source of protein. I'm not an expert at underwater activity at all, but we do have a resident expert here that would like to weigh in on the bill.
Representative Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, the committee members. I certainly not an expert, but I did spend a lot of time working in the water, and one of the things that we did as recreation was spearfishing. And to the question, there are a few Midwest states that do have regulations that allow spearfishing underwater. I believe, North, South Dakota, Nebraska. But if you go up and down the east and west coast where they've got access to a little warmer water, that's a normal part of harvesting fish in Hawaii. And there's actually two kinds. One would be to operate as a scuba diver. The other one would be to do that free swimming. In both cases, you'd be using either typically a rubber band powered spear gun, or for the really athletically inclined, simply a spear, which is ups the ante, makes it about 5 times more difficult because you actually hold the spear. But this is not so much here, obviously, in the Midwest, but on both coasts, this being able to go in the water to harvest by spear is something that's been going on for generations. And it takes a little bit of tweaking of rules. Obviously, we have rules, but they would be, as you can see in the bill, very clearly along the same lines that we use. Dark house spearing is something you got to have ice to do. We do open water spearing in the spring for certain kinds of fish, and this is just a logical extension of that. It's a small user group, but it does provide another recreational opportunities. And the other thing is we're harvesting fish to put on the dinner table. It's not a catch and release program, but this is something I think where we can accommodate that. You're not going to be overran by. There's not a huge population of folks that scuba dive, but it certainly is something. There's nothing mysterious or magic about this. It's done up and down both coasts. We're obviously, rather than 10,000 lakes, they've just got an entire ocean to deal with. So with that, I would certainly support this bill.
Thank you. And any questions? Representative Anderson, did I see you? No? Representative Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. Looks like the bill spells things out pretty good. On line 3.14, the commissioner may adopt rules. With what you've got here, I'm wondering what rules the DNR or the commissioner would have to adopt to enact this. 'Cause the bill looks pretty good.
Answer that.
Please, Representative Sundin.
I think Mr. Dynert's capable of answering that.
Please proceed.
I have full faith that the DNR will set protective slots and prohibited areas, prohibited species, and even different limits possibly. I know the current dark house spearing limit for the northern pike, they have an exception for the spearing because you can't really measure the fish before you spear it. So we're allowed 1 in the slot of our 10 fish limit. That's the kind of things that I think the DNR would go after as far as their.
See, we do have the DNR that came up to the table here, so please introduce yourself. Did you hear the question?
I did, Mr. Chair, members. Pat Rivers, Deputy Director for the Division of Fish and Wildlife. If I can give a little bit of background, I did some talking with some folks in Wisconsin, and they do allow spearing statewide. It doesn't happen broadly, but there are some lakes where there is definite interest in spearing. And in a situation like that, if we're happening in Minnesota, we might choose to have rules that would restrict harvest of, let's say, northern pike, to maybe cut that limit down in case there was over harvest by that spearing community. There is some concern by groups in Wisconsin related to yellow perch and the spear fishermen targeting the larger fish. So I think, as the testifier stated, we can work through rule to address those issues on a localized basis.
Thank you. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the testifier, in my younger days, I was also certified as a scuba diver, and at least out around where I live, the lakes aren't real clear, so visibility would be an issue here. So is this really looking at a certain part of the state or quarries, abandoned mine pits? What type of lake would this work in?
I live in just west of here, about 40 miles, and the lake I live on, I wouldn't be able to spear on it hardly ever. But the lake across the road, it's, 20-foot clarity. And there's a lot of lakes in the area that are clearer than others. Yeah, it probably wouldn't work so much in the far southern part of the state, but anywhere from, the metro on up, yeah. Yeah, and there's, anywhere in the state if there's clear water. There's quarries in southern Minnesota as well too, so, yeah.
Representative Fabian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Rivers or Director Rivers had a comment on that.
Oh,
I'll
okay,
take a
I didn't
second.
see that.
Well, I just
Mr.
want,
Rivers.
Mr. Chair, I just want to encourage you to take a look at a website. I've become friends with an underwater photographer by the name of Eric Ingebrigtsen. He may have presented to this committee. He was at the roundtable a couple of years ago. Scuba diving is an interesting and wonderful sport, and certainly spearfishing is an extension of what we do with our, what we can do with angling. But those fish are pretty vulnerable. I just want you to take a look at how close Eric is able to approach those fish, and we'll have to kind of watch the harvest if this were to pass. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Representative Fabian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, then, based on the testimony that I'm hearing here, not telling you how to run your committee, Mr. Chair, but I got to believe that because of lines 3.14 and 3.15, this bill probably needs to go to GovOps because of the rulemaking.
No, we can. I think we'll certainly take that under consideration. We are just at this time just going to lay it over and for possible inclusion. Do we, okay, Representative Lippert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. Greater Minnesota, up where I live, has a lot of beautiful water, so I welcome you to come up there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's clear.
Any other testifiers, questions from members? Ask that first again. Other testifiers for or against the bill? Seeing none. I'll renew my motion. House File 92 be laid over for possible inclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The bill is laid over.
And then
Okay,
these chicken.
moving right along. We have the same representative testifying on House File 223, waste tire facility.
We don't.
And this bill, I'm going to move House File 223 to be referred to Ways and Means. And I understand you have an author's amendment, Representative Sundin.
I'd like someone to move the DE2.
I'll move that amendment, the DE2. Explain it, if you would, please.
Yeah, working off the DE2. This bill actually spells out some of the financial responsibilities or what the financial responsibility should be for waste tires. The waste tire issue is kind of a nasty one to deal with. Nobody wants any waste tires laying around in their yards. State of Minnesota doesn't want them piled up too high because of the fire dangers, that type of thing. I personally don't want them ground up and spread all over the state of Minnesota for every purpose. But we have responsible companies right here in Minnesota that are doing a good job, and we've got some companies that are emerging, looking at the market, and I think everybody welcomes responsible business practices, but I think we should turn to the industry experts and see if we can safeguard the environment here in Minnesota. So we have a couple of different testifiers for certain, but you want to go right ahead?
Can we move, I've got that DE2 on the table, I'd like to take a vote on that unless there's questions on that. DE2? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? Amendment's adopted, so please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Dexter Matthews. I'm Vice President of Government Relations and Environmental Affairs for Liberty Tire Recycling. We have two facilities here in Minnesota in St. Martin and Savage. We really appreciate Representative Sundin reaching out to us and talking with industry about the issues that he had and perhaps some ways to cover those issues within the state. There's two provisions in this bill. One is for financial qualifications for an owner and an operator of a facility, one that's seeking a permit here in Minnesota to make sure that they're financially qualified to carry out the operation of a scrap tire facility. It seems very reasonable to us that someone coming in should have the strength to own and operate a facility for which they're seeking a permit, and to demonstrate that to the agency. Obviously, the agency may need some assistance, and that's the reason there's language, I believe, in the proposal for the state auditor's office to take a look at the information that's being submitted in to the agency. It's that simple, to make sure that that Minnesota does have facilities that are seeking permits that have the qualifications to carry out the permit action that they're seeking. And then secondly, to have financial assurance for the site, for the number of tires that are being stored on the site, to make sure that that's up to date. Most states across the country require you not only to demonstrate that when you're seeking a permit, but also to update that annually, because obviously the costs go up over a period of time. We don't believe that those costs have been updated annually, and so the number that's put in the bill is $250 per ton to clean up a site if it's left. If the person operating it goes out of business, what would the costs be to clean it up? So that's where the $250 came from. Mark Moss, who's our Vice President of Operations here in the state, supplied information to Representative Sundin on those costs. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have, Mr. Chairman or members.
Questions, members? Everybody likes the bill, I guess.
Let's go to town.
Anybody in the audience wants to testify? Okay, another testifier here.
Mr. Chairman,
introduce
members of the
yourself.
committee, my name is Dave Benke. I'm the Director of the Resource Management and Assistance Division at the Pollution Control Agency. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this bill with you today. The agency agrees that financial assurance is an important part of every solid waste facility that we have out there. In the case that a facility closes or needs to close, we want to make sure that we have the resources to properly clean that facility up. We also rely on our permit conditions to operate the facility on an ongoing basis to make sure that the facility is operating the way it's supposed to be and that we avoid problems down the road, so that if there is the need for closure, that most of those things have been addressed. We currently don't require a financial qualification as projected in this bill. We rely on the operational permit application to come in with the financial assurance mechanism up front to demonstrate that, and then to demonstrate through the actual application itself the ability of the facility to do what it needs to do, the types of equipment it's going to operate, what it's going to do with the tires, and ultimately how they're going to be used and what type of market they have. So we rely on those things as the tests that this bill takes in a little bit different direction. But we still agree that we have to have that assurance when we permit a facility that's going to be able to do what it needs to do. And then the financial assurance piece that we look at, we currently have several different options for financial assurance mechanisms in the rule. We relied on those over the years and found these to be the best mechanisms that are out there. The addition of the corporate financial test in the bill, we're not sure that it has the same assurances that the current mechanisms we have provide for us. The financial test kind of looks at a snapshot for a corporation and isn't necessarily tied to collateral. The mechanisms that we've chose to put in place are tied to some type of collateral mechanism that we can get at in the need of closure. Those mechanisms include a financial assurance mechanism held by the county. There's a closure trust fund. There's a surety bond guaranteeing payment into that trust fund, a letter of credit, and then a surety bond guaranteeing performance of the closure. Those are all still in the bill. They're still allowed as mechanisms, but we're not sure if everyone starts to take the new mechanism, if that's got implications in terms of the resources being there for closure. Last, the $250 per ton appears to be a number that may be out of the range of a lot of the tire operators that we have currently. We have not taken a look at what that would do in terms of additions to the facilities, but we haven't had to call in a financial assurance mechanism on a waste tire facility, and I started on this program 30 years ago. I was only 12 then, so it was, but it hasn't been one where we've needed to do it. When we have closed facilities, and there have been closures, the cleanups have happened, and the mechanisms haven't had to be called in. But we're willing to work with the author and come up with language or remedy the problem. We recognize what we're trying to get at to make sure that we have good processors in the state that are financially viable. We want to make sure that happens because waste tires are annually generated in this state in the millions, and we need to take care of those across the state. We also like the ability to have more than one processor in the state. Just in case something happens, we've got viable alternatives for the tires, and we don't end up with the piles, which I started on 30-some years ago. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Couple of questions here. Representative Heinzen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before our MPCA testifier leaves, I was wanting to ask, do you support the bill as it is, or would you think that there might need to be an amendment? Just listening to your testimony, I'm wondering if we are going to wind up in a situation. I see the author of the bill nodding his head, so.
Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I anticipate a little tweaking on this bill before it hits the next committee, but appreciate your support today.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And hearing testimony from the MPCA raised a few questions for me. First of all, Mr. Benke, on page 1 and 1.12, it talks about the application for financial and the permit and so forth. Walk me through the permitting process. How long is it going to take a facility to get permitted, to get set up and get running? Months, days, years?
Mr. Chair and members, generally we have a permit application comes in with a full application. It's probably about a 6-month process that would take for that to get through. If we need to do additional environmental review, it could take longer, depending on the size of the facility. It also always depends on how well the application is put together and if there's any additional information needed.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what other agencies would be involved in the permitting process for a facility like this?
Mr. Chairman, currently the PCA issues the waste tire permits. You would also have local jurisdiction potentially, county or city township, that might need a conditional use permit or some other land designation that they might have. But the agency is the only ones who work on waste tire permits currently.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then on page 3 in the bill, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, Mr. Benke, you said something about cities and counties and fiscal assurance, but it says in section subdivision paragraph B, 3.6, the section does not apply to political subdivisions operating a waste tire facility. And I'm confused by what you said earlier, so can you clarify for me?
Sure. Mr. Chairman and members, what I was reflecting was the current process for a permit, which you asked about how long that takes. This addition of the financial qualifications would not necessarily pertain to the local units of government, as said in the bill, but it would be another step that we would have to take as part of the permit application to look at the facility, make sure that it had the financial qualifications as they're spelled out in the bill.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So recently, I purchased a new set of tires, Northland Tire in Roseville, and there was a fee on there for the tire disposal. Don't be laughing. Tell me what happens with the $4 fee per tire, $5 fee per tire. Where does that go?
Mr. Chair, members, I think that the best way to start that is making sure that you look at that fee and that it's assessed that it doesn't seem like it's too good of a deal, because waste tires do require processing and being taken care of. So if it looks like too good of a deal, it might not be. And at the $4 or $5 range, that's what it takes for a waste tire transporter to come then collect those tires from the tire dealer. They'll transport those to waste tire processor, where they'll actually turn them into a tire-derived product in the state. So there's probably from your neck of the woods transportation to one of the other facilities across the state. There's not a real close location there, so it would take some transportation costs to get them there.
Representative Baby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then one of the other concerns I have is, the gentleman is here. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I apologize. I think you said Liberty Tire. I'm curious to know how many other businesses do we have that are doing these types of things now, and how are they going to be affected by this legislation?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I can let our Vice President, Regional Vice President, can give you information on that. The agency certainly permits all the facilities, so they probably have the number of facilities that are currently operating within the state. I really can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Don't know if we got an answer for you on that one, Representative Fabian.
Mr. Chairman, members, I believe there are 4 waste tire processors in the state currently.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Benke, do you have an idea where they're located?
Mr. Chair, members, I could get that back to you, but just off the top of my head, we've got a couple in the metro area, one a little bit in the northern part of just the near metro, and currently then one in the far north.
Provide that information back to the chair, and we'll distribute that, please.
Yes.
Other questions? Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Benke, I know the kind of oversight that occurs with the MPCA in Greater Minnesota with hazardous waste generators and solid waste facilities, and in the metro with metro counties. Does that same level of oversight with inspections occur at waste tire facilities? So there's there's ongoing oversight of operations and such?
Mr. Chairman, members, the resources at the Pollution Control Agency aren't endless, and so we do have to operate within the budget that we have. But currently we have solid waste inspectors placed throughout the state in our regional offices, and we try and conduct annual permit visits on our solid waste facilities. We've looked at the priorities for those, and we want to make sure that we get at those and keep those inspections. The other opportunity for us to look at facilities when we get complaints, and we'll respond to complaints generated either by citizens or by counties to take a look at those facilities.
Mr. Chair, so you're saying that waste tire facilities are considered solid waste facilities, so they get an annual whenever possible? Or?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Whenever the resources permit us to do that, that's our schedule that we want to keep on.
Thank you.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the testifier, if you're able to agree on language with the bill, would you anticipate that this would take the place of your current qualifications for looking at these facilities?
But who do you want to answer that, Representative Anderson? Do you have an idea? MPCA?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, the bill requires us to update our waste tire rules to incorporate these into that. I don't believe that it would displace our operational requirements in the rules, but I think it would be an addition as we look at the financial qualifications and financial assurance requirements.
Very good. Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one real point of clarification. Mr. Benke, does MPCA support, oppose, or are they neutral on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, as Representative mentioned, we are willing to take a look and see if we can make sure that something that's suitable for everyone can come out of this. Currently, we have some questions, but I think we're more than willing to work with the author and figure out a path forward.
Representative Pavey.
Thank you. And then I would add to that, please work with the industry as well. And I recognize that Representative Sundin is probably representing them to a certain degree. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody in the audience looking to testify on this bill? Seeing no further testifiers, I'll renew my motion that House File 223 as amended be referred to Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's on its way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Okay. House File 1472, Representative Claflin. Please tell us about your bill. Let's see here. I need, well, would you like to move your bill?
Yes, thank you. I move to refer House File 1472 to Ways and Means.
Very good. So please tell us about your bill.
Thank you. And before I get started, since this is my first bill in front of the committee, I did bring cookies. They are underneath the cart if a page would help bring them around. There are molasses and coconut toffee cookies. This is a very simple, straightforward bill that allows the DNR to use electronic forms of communication instead of paper mail. It allows a lot of different types of permit communications. And if you have questions about the specific permit situations where the DNR could use electronic communications, I believe we have some DNR staff here. But this is going to be a measure that just updates some statutory language, brings us into the 21st century, and will likely save some costs from the printing and mailing of communications.
Okay, we got a question. Representative Lewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that always a concern is there going to be a methodology here so there may be some folks out there that just, like it or not, don't communicate electronically. Is there a way that those folks are protected so that they're not just basically left out of the communications stream because they don't, have a computer or routinely communicate electronically?
Representative Claflin.
Yes, those folks would continue to receive a hard copy mail notification. It would be voluntary to offer your email up. It would also allow the DNR to accept some electronic communications.
Questions? Did the DNR have feedback for you? Or did?
This is a policy that was recommended by the DNR. It's one of their priorities.
Okay. That seemed pretty straightforward. Okay. Anybody in the audience wants to testify on this bill? House File 1472. I see people getting up, but nobody coming down here. Okay. I thought there was a whole crowd coming down, but I guess not. So. Well, with that, and seeing no further testimony on the bill or questions, Representative Claflin will renew her motion, House File 1472, be referred to Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill's on its way to Ways and Means, Representative Claflin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Representative Lippert. House File 1569. And I see you have some testifiers.
I do, Mr.
Looks
Chair.
like Representative Lippert. Let's see here. would you like to move your bill, Representative Lippert?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that House File 1569 be referred to Ways and Means.
Very good. Please introduce your bill and tell us a little about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Working Lands is a continuation of an investment made back in 2016 that allowed the Board of Water and Soil Resources to assess the environmental benefits and market potential of many perennial and winter annual crops. Survey farmers in 6 major watersheds as to their familiarity with and interest in planting these crops on their less productive lands, model the impacts of land use changes on water quality, and assess the amount of subsidies needed to make these crops competitive with conventional row crops, which reduces risk for farmers who volunteer to change their crop mix. Bowser's work was broadly supported within the agricultural community, including the Farmers Union and the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. There's broad support for continued investment in working lands as well, including landowners who want options for keeping ecologically sensitive lands in production, communities who are struggling to provide clean, safe drinking water for the residents, and agriculture leaders who are looking at ways to diversify food and bio-based products to meet changing consumer demands. So in 2016, the Minnesota legislature appropriated funds and directed the Board of Water and Soil Resources to, quote, prepare and plan a feasibility study for working lands watershed restoration program to incentivize the establishment and maintenance of perennial and cover crops, unquote. The intent of this legislation was to assess the feasibility of cultivating perennials and cover crops, primarily for biofuel and bioenergy development. Dave Wayans from Bowser is here, and we'll talk more about that report in a minute. House File 1569 provides $8.5 million in general fund support to Bowser to establish the pilot phase of the Working Lands Wellhead Protection Program. It accelerates the development of self-sustaining markets for conservation crops that improve soil health, reduce runoff pollution, and enhance farm prosperity in community wellhead protection areas. And it does this by establishing screening criteria for pilot areas and landowners willing to participate, outreach to farm operators, agribusiness partners, local governments, and interest groups on the economic and environmental benefits of conservation crops, selection of pilot areas within the wellhead protection areas, providing agronomic and technical assistance for new growers from experts at the University of Minnesota Forever Green Initiative and University of Minnesota Extension programs, establishing long-term contracts for growers to de-risk participation based on preliminary farmer surveys. Costs could range from $35 an acre to $125 an acre. Evaluation of water quality improvements under the program. Coordination with state agencies, soil and water conservation districts, watershed districts, public water suppliers, local governments, and other interest groups. Coordination with other groundwater and drinking water planning and protection initiatives, and maximizing leverage of federal funds assistance for establishment of conservation crops. So that provides some overview of the legislation, and I'll turn it over now to Mr. Wagenius.
Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is David Wyrens. I'm Assistant Director for Programs and Policy with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. And I'm here today to speak a little more in depth on the report that was just referred to. We have to go back at a later time. The committee has interest in going into more depth into the findings of the report. The purpose of this was to lay out how might we try and take a transformation in the rural economy to a more perennial landscape, have more cover crops, have more vegetation on the ground more often. Obviously, from our perspective at the Board of Water and Soil Resources, our interest is in the water quality benefits of this. As an agency, we are involved in a wide range of voluntary conservation activities. We have some involvement with a few regulatory programs as well that have water quality as a purpose. But this market-based approach is a third way to try and achieve our water quality benefits. To work with producers to grow crops, have more cover on the land for a longer period of time during the course of a year, so that the runoff as well as the water that seeps into our groundwater have a chance to get filtered by the vegetation before it gets to another body of water.
In terms of a little more detail, again, not in duplicating the prior description, part of the work we did is looked at a wide range of potential crops that are either perennial or are cover crops. Some of those you've heard about: kernza, alfalfa, winter camelina are a few examples of the sort of crops that we analyzed to take a look at. We did a broad survey of farmers in 6 watersheds to get information on what's their level of knowledge, what's their level of interest, what might it take to get them to convert their cropping system from a traditional row crop to incorporating cover crops or changing to a perennial system. And we also looked at modeling. What's the benefit? Again, our interest is primarily what's the environmental benefit. And we worked with the Pollution Control Agency to do modeling of some of these watersheds to identify what would be the water quality benefit, and we're talking about surface water benefits of various scenarios of conversion of row crop land to these perennial crops or to the cover crops. And we also worked in depth with the University of Minnesota. We contracted with the Water Resources Center and some of their economists to help us analyze, looking at current cost of production, looking at current prices of various commodities. What would it take to convert over to a new cropping system? One of the key challenges we had is how do you estimate what is the value of kernza, what's the value of alfalfa on a broader scale, for some examples. Because the idea there is we want to provide, we have to acknowledge that there is an economic component here. A farmer, if they're going to make a change, they have to have some idea that they're going to earn income off that land as they do currently. So how do we cover for that? And that gets back to the issue of what kind of subsidy might be required to make that conversion if you're a farmer. And those are, again, more details in the report that goes through this in some more detail. In terms of the recommendations of what would come next, the recommendations that we had provided for is we think there are some elements of a future working lands program that we think should be considered, and they're outlined again in more detail in the report. We think the first one is speaking about flexibility. Producers need to have some flexibility of determining what kind of crops they might want to plant, and they of course are going to look at what's their return, how they're going to make some income on that, and how does that interplay with state and federal programs as well. We think there also should be a simple enrollment process. One thing we heard pretty loud and clear in the survey is make the process, everything as simple as possible. More complicated is going to be turned off. That's no surprise to you members as you talk to your landowners out there as well. The issue of risk management is a real critical thing. There is a cost of lost production. I mean, the current corn soybean price versus some other perennial, but there's also the opportunity cost of making the change. We have to acknowledge that in whatever subsidy we're going to offer, and that needs to be provided in here. We think we need to have a conversation with the federal government about crop insurance. That's a really big deal if you talk to farmers, and we need to make sure that we are accounting for that in a future program. We also think that a way to get some immediate benefits is to really have more of a source water focus. We think there's a smaller landscape that this can be applied on, and there are ways to make some more immediate benefits to water suppliers. And a key part and part of the involvement in this work with the University of Minnesota and Forever Green is the need that needs to be more work on supply chain and infrastructure. There's a very well developed for corn, soybeans, sugar beets and the like. We need to create a similar kind of infrastructure to support farmers, provide a market for what they produce as well. And I think the last thing I'll say about this is that we also think that if we're going down this path, we should look at how do we get some multiple benefits. Groundwater quality and surface water quality important, but what else can we do with how we target this to look at pollinator habitat, wildlife habitat, carbon storage, some of these things to provide some multiple benefits of the sort of kind of where we target it, as well as the kind of crops that would be produced under this kind of program. Again, Mr. Chair, this report was completed in February of 2018, and it's available on our website. We're happy to come back and put more detail should there be interest on the part of the committee.
Very good. Thanks for your testimony, and I know we got some questions here, but I'd like to get all the testifiers to give their...
Yep, I'll invite Aaron Meyer forward, who's from the Minnesota Rural Water Association. He can speak some to the water quality challenges that some communities face in these wellhead protection areas.
Please be as quick as you can to get your point across, if you would, please. Introduce yourself.
Aaron Meyer, Minnesota Rural Water Association. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to testify. I'll be as short and concise as possible. Basically, I'm here just to talk on behalf of the need out there for drinking water. Minnesota Rural Water Association, we're a nonprofit group. We're located across the state. We have 20 staff members. And we have 1,000 members out there, largely comprised of municipalities, industry, and businesses. And we provide water, wastewater, and wellhead protection assistance to our members. Reason why I'm here today is basically to reemphasize the need out there. I work directly with municipalities, farmers, ranchers across the state in these well protection areas, and we need some more assistance, some more tools out there to help us to alleviate some of the nitrate leaching that's occurring. In your packet, just to kind of give you guys an idea of the breadth of the communities that are dealing with elevated nitrate levels. I think there's a map that was produced by Minnesota Department of Health showing those hotspot areas. And just to try to keep as short as possible is we need to create other opportunities for farmers, ranchers, and public water suppliers to have some kind of perennial cropping system, some kind of living cover that's out there so that we can provide, better groundwater protection in these sandy, coarse-textured soils, which traditional row crop right now, even with the best operators, there's some great farmers out there, there's still elevated nitrate levels leaching through their farming practices. And introducing perennials or living cover will help to take care of some of those issues. Then finally, just to echo some of the earlier testaments, is we need to make this economically driven, has to be sustainable, and we have to have some kind of market for that. With that, I'll be short and conclude.
Thank you very much. And we'll bring up the next testifier if we can, please.
Yeah, Dr. Gabe Guzmini is here. He's from PepsiCo, and he's going to talk about the role that these crops can play in creating new markets and meeting changing consumer demands as well.
We're going to ask the testifiers to stick around, so if there's questions, we know we have questions, I'm not sure exactly who for, so just stick around. Please introduce yourself for the
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Gabe Guzmini. I'm the Director of Crop Improvement Research for PepsiCo. As most food companies, we're always interested in new raw materials for our products. And we have three characteristics that we're interested in, among others. One, that they bring a nutritional advantage to the consumer. And the second, that they can improve the environment or protect the environment while they're grown. And third, that they bring profitability to the farmers. And the crops that this initiative is working on checks all the boxes. And so we've been engaged in research in partnership with the university in helping to translate some of the innovation that they developed in the last couple of decades into market opportunities for downstream application. And some of them are more advanced than others, and we're quite excited in being able to eventually continue to partner and bring them to fruition to the consumer.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Finally, I'd invite Doug Brands forward. He's here from the city of Edgerton. He can speak about some of the challenges that Edgerton has faced, and he's also a landowner, so he brings that perspective too.
Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Doug. I am from the city of Edgerton. I am the water supervisor. The city of Edgerton has been involved in wellhead protection since 1997. At that time, we put about 20 acres of land into CRP to protect our well from nitrates. What was happening is, as row crop farming became more competitive, farmers started applying more nitrogen and such like that. And our well is shallow, so it's easily contaminated. It's probably only 42 foot deep, with the water table on a wet year like this summer was as high as 8 feet below the ground. So it's easily contaminated with runoff, with leaching of nitrates. So in 2001, our nitrates were maybe coming down slightly. In 2001, we put an additional piece of CRP, just 10 acres adjacent to our well. Within about 3 years, our nitrate levels have dropped in half. Well, that was a 10-year contract with that landowner. Came to the end of the contract, and CRP didn't pay as well as row crop farming and such. So he asked the city, he said, if I keep it in CRP, will you supplement it? Well, pretty soon the city council, the landowner started to butt heads and didn't think that they couldn't come to an agreement. So the landowner said, fine, I'm done with the city. And he took it out. Well, within about 3 years of that, our nitrate levels have gone back up. So in 2011, it came out. 2014, I started noticing going up. By this time now, well, last year about this time, our nitrate levels have reached the levels that they were back in 1997. So obviously you can see the importance of wellhead protection by that. Since then, I've worked with the landowner as a city and a city council, and we have gotten that land rented back from him. I can't talk him in at the current time to putting it back into CRP, but I have talked him into renting land to the city. It's a 128-acre piece, so the city has a major investment in this, but we have planted kerns on 40 acres of it. So you can also see the importance of marketing the kerns and the sustainability of it. The other 90 acres we put into cereal rye, and which is basically planted in the fall, harvested in the fall, but there are no longer no row crops in there. And since then, I have slightly noticed my nitrates coming down. Not significantly yet, but I'm hoping to see within about 2 years that they come back down to the levels they were before. They asked me to speak as a farmer's perspective. To call me a farmer would be kind of an exaggeration. I'm more of a hobby farmer. I have a little bit of land. But alternative things like kerns and alfalfa, alfalfa's been around our area for quite a while, is important. There's a lot of farmers that can use the hay for grazing. In my wellhead protection area alone, there are for sure 3 cattle farmers that need feed for their cattle. So alternatives to the corn that they're planting would be very important. With that, that's all I've got, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other testifiers, Representative Lippert, that you, I'm going to ask for the audience here, but.
That's my group.
Okay, anybody in the audience want to testify on this bill? Seeing none, I'm going to go to member questions. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Representative Lippert and Mr. Chair, I noticed across a number of committees, there's a lot of proposals coming in with general fund impact. And this one specifically, because of the time I've spent with LCCMR and now with the Legislative Water Commission and others. And I'll just read from the LCCMR. The ENRTF is intended to provide a long-term stable source of funding for innovative and far-sighted activities to protect, conserve, and enhance the state's air, water, land, fish, so on and so forth. Is there been an LCCMR proposal? Has there been an attempt to try to fund this in some other way? I mean, right now we're looking at, like I was mentioning, I feel like a little bit of a broken record. We're talking about a lot of general fund monies being asked for to go towards these kinds of projects. And I appreciate the testifiers. I think that they've done a good job bringing up some of the positives in this bill. But at the same time, we're talking about $8.5 million from general fund revenues. And when the LCCMR was created over 30 years ago or thereabouts, that's how it was sold to the people of Minnesota. And then again, also, when we're talking about the legacy amendment, that we're going to be working on clean water with these funds. And I know it's a process, and I know that there's a lot involved to get something like this maybe through that process. But here we are asking the taxpayer to pay more as opposed to making sure that those sources for revenues are considered. And, I just appreciate some response to that concern.
If I may, Representative Heinzman, I don't mind getting a response, but we're going to go too far into the finances and the policy committee, but
I believe
please,
Dave Wyron's going
give us your
respond to that.
Mr. Chair and members, in a brief response, the board did make a proposal to LCCMR for doing some of the work that's proposed in the legislation in front of you. It was not funded at that time.
Okay. Thank you for that. Representative Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My initial question was going to be on the same line as Representative Heiss, but I had a second question that I believe one of the testifiers, did I hear him correct that their well was at 42 feet depth? And I guess as a follow-up to that, is that well grandfathered in for use as drinking water? Because my understanding is that that our certified well drillers are not able to even drill a well less than 50 feet for potable water. That you couldn't construct that well today and meet the Department of Health requirements. So I'm just curious about that because that's a very, very shallow well.
This well was drilled in 1976, and we've gotten, other than the nitrate, we have very good water in there. And to my understanding, in our corner of the state, there are several wells shallower than that. Now, the new rules as far as 50 feet and stuff, I can't speak to that because I don't know the law on that. We haven't drilled a new well in the city of Edgerton since then. And what we are doing, this is our only source of water, so it's been a concern for a long time. We are connecting to Lincoln Pipestone Rural Water to have a second source of water, and that's also a financial burden on the city is to the tune of $1.2 million, and that's Lewis and Clark water that's going to be coming.
Thank you. I just, because it really struck me, because we've got a situation in the world I come from where sometimes we can find very good water at 30 feet, but well drillers can't do that. And then we'll find water that's got too much iron in it at 50 feet, and the next thing we're at 180 feet for a residential well. So there's a huge amount of cost involved there. But I know, at least in north central, northeast Minnesota, obviously that very top level of water is very susceptible to what goes on the surface. But yeah, I was just struck by. It's a good thing they grandfathered that in because you could not construct that well today at that depth.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that the bill is looking at a market-driven strategy to try to implement some of these things. And cover crops are a good thing, and we all want to make sure that they help improve water quality. But I find it a little bit ironic that you're talking about alfalfa and forages, things like that, and the guy from Edgerton talked about livestock farmers in the area that would be in the market to use these products off these cover crops. But yet, we're hearing more and more talk, especially from Washington, that cows are bad, they belch too much and give off methane, and some want to do away with livestock. And I just think that there's a realization here that to make something like this work and to make it economically feasible to make a program with cover crops work, livestock can play an important part in that process by being a market for the cover crops produced. And I'd like to hear, and I know this isn't a finance committee, Mr. Chair, but again, the finances have to be a part of making a program like that work. And the fellow from Edgerton, and I love Edgerton, it's the most hallowed basketball town in the state of Minnesota, so congratulations, 1960 state champions. But if you're renting out some of that land, is it coming at all close to cash flowing? Are you able to make it work?
That was our goal, is to try and make it work. And last year we had a poor crop of cereal rye. We had a major snowstorm late in the year, and I think the germination didn't. It was a poor germination, so the stand was thin. The yield was poor. We were able to get some financing through the Minnesota Department of Health to assist it, and through the financing, we were able to break even or come very close. But the numbers that we've put together with the cereal rye, and as long as we're able to sell the kernza, my goal is, or our hope is, that it would be sustainable. That was what our efforts were to try and show. At this point, we've only done this for 1 year, and this is our second crop. Our second crop will be coming next fall. I would have better numbers then, but the first year, no, it was not.
Representative Anderson.
One quick follow-up, thanks, Mr. Chair. Now, the kerns, I believe, is perennial wheat.
Yes.
You can use that for a 4 or 5 year rotation. How has that worked out, and where is your market for that perennial wheat?
So we seeded it last August, and we got a short growth this fall. Our market is the University of Minnesota is going to buy it back from us and use it for seed to supply other wellhead protections or what they decide to do with it. I'm not sure.
Very good. Representative Fabian.
I would just quickly add, Representative Anderson, that there are some cafes that are experimenting with Kernza and some brewers that are experimenting with it too. And I believe General Mills is considering some sort of small production facility as well.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate what's attempting to be done here. I'd be remiss too, Mr. Chair, I realize this isn't the Finance Committee, but as I read the bill, we're going to spend about $1.7 million per year. And I'm still not exactly clear what we're going to be doing. And Representative Wagenius would say, how are we going to measure outcomes? And we already have a number of programs that do things with regards to planting perennials and so forth, PREP, RIM, our buffer program, CRP. We've got the water quality certification program through the Department of Ag. The University of Minnesota is working on different things. The Magnuson Research Farm up in Roseau, for example, is growing Kernza wheat. Richard Magnuson grows it on his farm. I've been in his combine when he's actually combining it, and they're very much of a struggle to get that to be any kind of a crop that does some cash flowing. But what is this program going to do that a lot of these other programs aren't? And Mr. Irons, I'm wondering, does Bowser have the capacity to do this? How many FTEs you're going to have to hire? There's a lot of questions that I have.
Well, Mr. Chair and Representative Fabian, to respond to your question is the kind of what you're asking is our perspective on this bill. And what I can tell you is that, this is, I'm sure you know, it's not in the governor's budget. But however, we certainly would accept responsibility to pick this up if it were to be enacted into law. If experience were a guide from what we did under the first round of the project, I could speak to what our staff cost was this. We had less than one full FTE that was devoted to this work over the course of the roughly 2 years we did the work. We had one position that was about half-time on this, and then a share of my time was devoted as well. And that was all that we devoted to get this first phase done in terms of our costs. The rest of the money that we received in 2016 went out to various contracts to get the actual work done for the project. And in fact, we sent some back to the general fund as we not spend it all under this initial project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But what would you have to do additionally with this program compared to what you're doing now? I'm not clear. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair and Representative Fabian, we are currently not doing anything in this regard at this point in time. The initial work we did was a feasibility study to look at how such a program could in fact work. As it lays out, we think there are opportunities out there. It also does speak to the fact, to the question of Representative Anderson as well, is that we believe there is going to be a subsidy required. The intention and the discussion of the course of the first project was that it be a temporary. How temporary remains to be seen. You need to develop the infrastructure. Well, first make sure that the various crops are well suited and are productive enough, that there's a market for that so that farmers can sell it. With the goal being is that if we kind of create some, in effect, startup money, how might this turn into a long-running opportunity where there's no longer need for a government subsidy to make it work? That's the goal of this, and that's what we were trying to get at with our initial approach that we laid out in this report from last year.
Thank you. And I just want to add, Representative Fabian, that looking at this algorithm as well, and we do have to figure in on what are we going to get out of it pollution prevention wise, because it would, Park Rapids, they had to drill a new well, and we paid for part of that, and the community had to pay for part of that. So there's a lot of things go into it. Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I respect that. I really do. I think DNR's got in their budget now the Pineland Sands Forest study and so forth that they're doing there. I'm not necessarily opposed to what we're doing. I do think that we should take money from Clean Water Fund or from LCCMR instead of the general fund. And with all due respect to Bowser, I'm just not sure that they are set up to start dealing with the economics of agriculture and what's going to work and what's not. I think there would be better sources for that. Thank you.
Representative Baker Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to thank Representative Lippert and the testifiers. I think this looks like a great program. I really like the focus being on water and drinking water, and what I heard from the testifier from Edgerton is that there's an immediate need to address this so that the people in their community have safe drinking water. As far as the demand, if you went to the Land Stewardship Project breakfast yesterday, I believe one of the items on our plate was made with Kernza, and we learned about how those root systems work and how those are beneficial. And I think at one point there's a couple of the local craft breweries who had trouble finding enough Kernza for what they were trying to do. So I know, as it becomes more available, as a brewery, you're not going to invest in starting a new beer if you're not sure you're going to continually have the grains that you need to make that. So I think there probably is an appetite for grains like Kernza. And then finally, I just wanted to say, I'm on the tax committee too, and folks tend to not have any problem with tax breaks for farmers in rural cities, and that impacts the general fund as well. So I really like the focus of this being on drinking water. So again, thank you to the testifiers for their words and for you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Representative. I would just add that I think there's a broad group of stakeholders here behind this legislation, which I think is very unique and leads to good chances for success. This is a very unique opportunity, and the need is definitely urgent related to water. So I'm very supportive of this legislation and urge it forward.
Can I take those as your closing comments?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Very good. Representative Lippert will renew his motion in House File 1569 be referred to Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The bill is on its way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Wagenius. Please introduce your bill, or you want to move your bill? I guess let's start there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that House File 1239 be re-referred to the Health Policy Committee.
Okay, I've had Health Human Services is what I have written down. That'll suffice. Okay, please tell us about House File 1239.
You've just heard a bill about drinking water from wells, and I'm going to talk about something else. But by and large, Minnesotans get their drinking water from one of three sources: private wells, municipal wells, and surface water like the Mississippi River. Minneapolis residents get their water from the Mississippi. The Minneapolis Water Works serves not only Minneapolis, but a number of its suburbs. Altogether, about 25 to 30% of Minnesotans get their drinking water from surface water, and they're served by 25 drinking water works. The Minnesota Department of Health does not test surface waters that will be used for drinking water, does not test them for drinking water contaminants, and it does not require a waterworks to do so. Waterworks are required to test their water once it's been treated for a group of chemicals that was identified in 1996. The US EPA, which gives us these standards, has not added even one chemical since 1996, in spite of the fact that current science has identified a number of new contaminants that are showing up in drinking water sources. Basically, you can't manage what you don't measure. So House File 1239 does two basic things. It provides the money for the Department of Health to test for drinking water contaminants in surface water that is used for drinking water. And it provides money to develop standards for contaminants that are likely found in surface waters. So public works that rely on surface water will deal with different kinds of issues depending on where they are. We know that the waters up north are much cleaner and the waters down south are not. Minneapolis and St. Paul, and St. Paul also serves some of its suburbs, take their water from the Mississippi just north of the Minneapolis border. I'm going to tell you about some of the things that are going on in the Mississippi. Our drinking water intakes are about 20 miles south of the Crow River, where it enters the Mississippi. Keep in mind, as I tell you about NDMA, the shorthand for a highly toxic and potent chemical, cancer-causing chemical that has been found in the Minneapolis and St. Paul drinking water systems. It was detected during some testing in 2008 and 9, and the highest test was found to be 16 times higher than the Department of Health's based guidance value, a guidance value that only considers the increased risk of cancer, but does not look at the potential for developmental effects. And of course, when I say developmental effects, I'm thinking about things that will harm children. The Department of Health did nothing about NDMA after the 2008-9 testing. Last summer, a professor from the University of Minnesota submitted a proposal to the LCCMR asking for funds to find the chemicals that are reacting with the form of chlorine that is used by drinking water utilities to form this NDMA. In his presentation to the LCCMR, the professor said that the Crow and the Mississippi rivers had some of the highest levels of the chemicals that form NDMA that he had ever seen. He told the LCCMR that most of the toxicity problem occurred in the distribution system, but since MDMA is not regulated by health, there's really a disincentive to look for it. The guidance values that the Department of Health has now for NDMA are non-regulatory, so the department does not require systems to take action if samples are above this guidance value. What I'm going to talk about now is something a little bit different. PCA has invested a lot of money checking up on the Crow River. PCA does not test for drinking water contaminants. It checks for other things like phosphorus and sediments, nitrates, oxygen maybe, and has found that the Crow is impaired for aquatic life and aquatic recreation. In its TMDL report, the PCA said that the Crow has the highest level of fecal bacteria from overgrazed pastures next to water and failing septic systems in dry conditions. When it's looking at wet conditions, it says that its feedlots without runoff controls were the largest contributor to the fecal bacteria. The South Crow flows into the Crow just before it reaches the Mississippi. It has the highest concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus of all the streams in the Mississippi River Basin. The North Fork of the Crow also has high nitrate levels. While PCA does not check for pesticides, the Department of Agriculture's own data will show, or does show, that where there is high nitrogen levels, there will also be high pesticides levels. There's a direct correlation. There are 60 wastewater facilities in the relatively small Crow watershed. There's a map in your packet
that will show these. 36 are wastewater facilities, and these are municipal. 24 are industrial. In 2011, the PCA issued a report describing endocrine-disrupting chemicals, both upstream and downstream, from water treatment plants. The most frequently detected contaminant was bisphenol A, or contaminants, I should say. There were 4. Bisphenol A, a contraceptive hormone, a common antibiotic, and an anti-seizure medication used to treat attention deficit disorders. There were many more contaminants. Those were the 4 they identified as the most. Even when the concentration of these chemicals is very low, in that report from PCA, it found that the endocrine disruption of fish and wildlife, even at those tiny concentrations. In October 16, moving forward, PCA issued a report about pharmaceuticals and chemicals of concern in rivers. This is what the subtitle says. An extensive study of Minnesota's rivers and streams reveals that several commonly used pharmaceuticals and other commercial chemicals are present in the state's flowing waters. These contaminants are found to have measurable effects on fish exposed to them in river water. This was part of the title of the report that PCA gave to us. One of the 50 randomly tested sites was the Crow River. It had the second highest number of detections of pharmaceuticals and chemicals of concern, more than the Minnesota River. You can see that in the map I handed out, and this is that map. So the Crow is right here. State agencies do many acts of conservation, but they can't solve the problem of drinking water contaminants coming into the Mississippi or elsewhere if they don't know the scope of the problem. State agencies wanted to solve the problem of nutrients, excessive nitrogen and phosphorus. We've had many discussions about that. And those are found in our surface waters. The PCA has spent roughly $117 million of clean water legacy money over the last 10 years, testing and analyzing the problem of these nutrients as they begin to work on solving the problem. The Department of Agriculture has spent $25 million of clean water money to test private wells in vulnerable areas for nitrogen and pesticides. The Department of Health has received clean water money for non-regulatory guidance values. I talked to you about the NDMA as one of those. And for some real health risk limits, that is a standard that has to be followed. It also has received money to make plans for protecting municipal wells, and that is something that Representative Lippert addressed. But it has received virtually nothing to test for surface waters used for drinking waters, likely the most contaminated of all of our sources of drinking water. And this bill fills that gap. So I'll tell you just a teeny bit about the bill, if you'd like me to.
Please do, and then let's get to your testifiers if we can.
Okay. House File 1239, on page 2, is a list of the communities that use surface water. And on page 3, you'll find a list of contaminants. These are ones mainly identified because they have the most likely outcome of harming children. And there are, we're asking at the bottom of page 4 for the Commissioner of Health to look at what some of the other communities are doing to protect their source water. when their water is taken, when their source water is river water or other surface water. And then on page 4, we're asking the Department of Health to adopt some additional health risk limits and identify things that are most likely to harm children. With that, I understand there are people who would like to testify.
I have a couple of names on the list here. Representative Wagenius, please come down, and whoever wants to go first, introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
All right, thank you, Chair Purcell and members of the committee. My name is Daryl Gerber, and I'm a policy analyst at the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy. And I wanted to thank the author and the committee for taking a really good look at protecting the waters that we use for source waters for our drinking water. And in particular, the attempt to really fill in a lot of the gaps of knowledge that we have about what is in our source waters now. And then also really taking a good look at the gap in protection that there's provided for those surface water sources, especially compared to some other systems out there. So thank the author for kind of starting this conversation and continuing that, and really look forward to continuing to work with her and the committee on this and other ways to protect our drinking water sources.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Jeff Broberg. I'm a director of the Minnesota Well Owners Organization, a licensed professional geologist. My main interest is in water wells, but I wanted to come here today and talk to you about the connection between surface water and drinking water. This is an important connection that this bill addresses and reveals. In some regards, the work that we've done for source water protection with wells over the years has been more difficult because it's a hidden resource. We believe that focusing people's attention on drinking water wherever it's sourced, those things that you can see will raise the awareness of people considering the protection of their drinking water. I just want to give an example. We held a water clinic just 2 weeks ago down in southeastern Minnesota where we tested springs and surface water in southeastern Minnesota trout streams for nitrates. And what we found is quite remarkable. Those streams now represent base flow. Those are groundwater that is discharging into our streams, and we're seeing a distinct pattern of discharge of these nitrates that are likely related to a number of pesticides as well. So the connections between surface water and drinking water are two. One from the discharge of the base flow, and the second from the recharge that occurs when contaminated waters flow across these recharge sites. These are both important links that this bill will help address. The next part is really the public health part of this. The health risk limits for the chemicals are needed. We can't assume any longer that our water is safe without the testing. Testing for these is really the basis and the foundation for the protection of our drinking water. So the benefits are many. Drinking water awareness at the top of the list. If you can see where your water is coming from and have a better understanding of what that link is, the focus on the identification of those chemicals fueled by this groundwater connection is very important to us. So we speak in favor of the bill. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe we have a couple of folks in the audience that wanted to come up and testify. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Mr. Chairman and members, my name is Gene Ranieri. I am the Director of Government Relations for the City of Minneapolis. I am pinch hitting today for our Water Director, who is out of town at a conference. Representative Wagenius gave a pretty good overview of the City of Minneapolis's water system. We generate about 57 million gallons of water a day for use, not only in our city, but in many of our suburbs. And if you go to the airport, all the water at Twin Cities Airport is from the City of Minneapolis. We also do water for the City of Bloomington and also the City of Edina. About 40% of our water goes to our residents, 38% is purchased by commercial and industrial activities, companies in our city, and 22% is purchased by our suburban clients. Of that commercial industrial, we're talking about drinking water, but also an emerging industry in our city and throughout our state is craft beer and distilleries, and they use a lot of our water. And in fact, we even have a page on our website just for those folks to refer to our water, how our water is done and what's in our water. In the bill, we support the need for more research, for more information about what's happening in our surface water. The Mississippi we not only draw from the Mississippi, so does St. Paul, but so does St. Cloud. And and in this bill, there are some things that I think are important to do. We think there should be a schedule. We discover in reading the bill, the schedule for testing should be done with PCA and also ag consulting with the Department of Health. We suggest maybe the communities themselves should also be involved in that scheduling. Also in the bill, we talk about looking at other cities across the country, and some of them are named. I would suggest we think about also possibly Midwestern states and Midwestern cities and see locations either who draw water from rivers and lakes. The bill, I think, is important, and I think we would like to continue to work with the author of the bill, and we support it. Thank you.
And just for members, we do have this room till about 11:35, so we're going to go as long as we can. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll proceed quickly. My name is Todd Bewan with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I'm the director of the Environmental Analysis and Outcomes Division. And I just have two main points that I want to speak to today with our testimony. One is that we do think the intent of the bill is good. We share concerns about what we're seeing in our surface waters. Representative Wagenius ran through some of the studies that have been and some of what we've been finding in our surface waters. These are, and we do build that into our future plans. We are working on Class 1 water quality standards, and we plan to come forward, which are our drinking water standards. So we do intend to, over the next year to 2 years, be introducing and working with the Department of Health on what are those contaminants that we should be building into our water quality, or into our drinking water standards. And there is already good coordination that's going on with the Department of Health. The second point that I want to make is that we do think there are some things in the bill that are problematic. The list of contaminants, for example, is quite long, and it's extensive, and it is expensive to sample for these contaminants. So choosing carefully and prioritizing is important. And so we would like to continue to work on that and identifying where we want to prioritize with the Department of Health. We feel it's really important to be strategic and continue, and we do work closely with the Department of Health on these issues. We work with the Department of Agriculture, and so we think there's some overlap identified in the bill that is a little bit problematic as well, that we just need to work out and clarify the roles and who is doing what, and being strategic about this problem that does exist that we think is important to work on. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, our position on what we're seeing in House File 1239.
Thank you for your testimony. Other testifiers? Do we have any further discussion on House File 1239? Representative Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I guess this would be for the bill author. That comment about the list of chemicals that are in the bill right now, did you consult with Health, MPCA, and Department of Ag? Is that their list, or is this the bill author's list?
Several weeks ago, I gave a copy of the bill to the Commissioner of Health, and she made some suggestions to the bill, and I incorporated every suggestion she made.
Thank you, but did you give a copy of that bill to the folks at MPCA and ask for their, sounds like they've got a little bit of difference of opinion, maybe.
Representative Wagenius.
I am looking at this as a public health issue, and I'm wanting to refer this bill to health. So PCA's involvement is new to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just encourage to make sure we put all the best and brightest minds on this across all agencies, not just one.
Very good. Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Wagenius, in 1989, the state of Minnesota passed a law called the Groundwater Protection Act, and that related to both groundwater and surface water, and set up a voluntary mechanism which has resulted in us spending hundreds of millions of dollars in voluntary efforts. The list of chemicals that you provide here, and I'm going to ask you, because you were here in 1989, this list on page 3, most of those we didn't have any concern of. Were they even thought of? Were they even in the market, or did we know of them? Could you maybe take us back and mention what happened back then?
Representative Wagenius.
What we talk about mainly here is things we knew about in the 1970s: nitrogen, phosphorus, sediment. The chemicals that I have listed in the bill are ones that have now been identified with research. There's tons of research out there talking about the implications of things like bisphenol A. But that is, as Representative Hanson says, relatively new. So I would say since the mid-90s, and it was in the mid-90s when the EPA quit doing work on chemicals. Or I won't say they quit doing work. They have not issued any new standards since this new group of chemicals has come on the scene. They have been around for a while. We did not understand their implications, and we certainly did not understand their implications for children.
And Mr. Chair and Representative Wagenius, I see you have degradates in here. So what breaks down? Has there been new research on degradates to some of the old chemistry that we knew about back then?
One of the reasons I have the degradates in there is because we have chemical pesticides that have been commonly found, and that's kind of a phrase of art that the Department of Ag uses, that are commonly found in Minnesota. Atrazine is one of them. It does have breakdown products. Breakdown products can be have the same effect as a parent. It can have lesser effect. It can have a greater effect. There are no health-based standards in Minnesota for the breakdown products of atrazine. But I just use that as an example.
I would just offer too, as a follow-up in that discussion, that there are chemicals you're talking about that pharmaceuticals that go into humans and come out the other end, and they end up in the sewer system and in our water. So emerging contaminants of concern, I believe, is the language that's used. So thank you for that. Other questions? Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Chair. Representative, on page 5, line 18, you have language pertaining to reasonable margins of safety. Now, I haven't checked the statute, but are those margins in Section 144, or would they be an outcome of this study and this legislation?
Okay, let me find that page 5 where?
Line 18.
Okay, that is current law, and that is what the current law says. Law was adopted in the year 2000, I believe, and before that, our law looking at chemicals was based on what folks call the 160-pound man standard. And the law changed in 2000 to say that when we check, we need to check how the impacts of anything on infants, children, as well as adults. So that's current law. It's just referencing it.
Representative Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Wagenius, I like this idea, I like this concept. There are a lot of concerns as far as, endocrine disruptors and bisphenol A and other things that are in the waters. I'm trying to figure out what standards we're going to be testing for, because obviously surface water is not going to be expected to meet drinking water standards. So help me wrap my head around, is that what the health risk limits will do, is provide some sort of standard that we test toward, or?
Representative
The Department of Health has several ways of measuring. One is a guidance level, and it's the guidance level that is non-regulatory and non-enforceable. But they do make health risk limits, and that is a measure that will protect folks, including children and infants. That's their measure.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, one
Representative
follow-up.
Bull.
What happens when a surface body of water tests high? What steps can we take at that point? Or
Representative Wagenius.
Well, when I brought up the NDMA example, the professor at the University of Minnesota has just several chemicals in mind, not a whole swath, but several chemicals in mind, and got to check where they're coming from. And if you only have a couple of things in mind, you can do prevention, and that is what his whole thrust of what he wants to do, and what he testified at LCCMR, is to prevent these chemicals from getting in the water in the first place. He identified probably the primary one is something that humans take as medicine, and that perhaps a restructuring of that pharmaceutical would not end up as causing a cancer-causing.
I like the fact that source water protection strategies are included, because obviously that's something we want to continue to fine-tune going forward. So, thank you.
I would,
Representative, would you give us your final words on the bill, if that's okay? I don't have any
members,
more-
I know it's lunchtime. I would appreciate your support, and I renew my motion that House File 1239 be referred to Health and Human Services Policy.
Motion before us, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is on its way, Representative Wagenius. Thank you. Representative Fischer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Our goal here, because our time is shorter than what we had wanted, our goal is to have you introduce the bill and get your testifiers on the record, please.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, this is House File 1502. It's to deal with oversalting. This is an issue that was raised by the 2015 Environmental Quality Board Water Policy Report. What we're doing is continuing the efforts that was started by Representative Anselmo last year. I am not putting the DE forward at this point in time. It is my intent at a future meeting stop to address the liability issue. What this bill does is sets up a voluntary certification program to establish best practices for private salt applicators. It addresses liability related to that, and then also establishes a record-keeping process. What I'd like to do is move quickly, though, to the testifiers that I have, because they will not be able to come back later. If I could first have Sue come forward here to present her, and we have 2 minutes.
Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Sue Nissen. I'm a master water steward, a member of Stopover Salting, and have taken level 1 and 2 smart salt training. My colleagues and I will never forget the day we learned that 1 teaspoon of de-icer permanently pollutes 5 gallons of water. There is no practical way to remove it from our waters, so we have to live with it. It's accumulating, and now we have 50 water bodies statewide impaired and 120 at the tipping point. The issue we bring to you today is over-application and lack of training. We see it regularly at far too many locations around the state, especially on private properties like shopping malls, apartments, houses of worship, and office complex. starting in our local communities. Our group, Stop Over Salting, have talked to over 250 applicators. And from our work, we can assure you that the training is needed for the majority of these applicators, but the training alone is not enough to reduce the overuse. The reason? It's slip and fall lawsuits. They are by far the primary determinant of how much de-icer is applied. Because of a widely held, it's a misconception that more de-icer means more safety. We see this every day as applicators go beyond best practice spread patterns that they call property managers call applicators back to put more down, or we see de-icer on dry sidewalks. It's 100% pollution. Applicators are concerned about over-application. They're concerned about water, many fish. They don't want to see this happening. However, at the conclusion of the conversations, they come back to us and say, inevitably, it's the fear of lawsuits, and the more de-icer provides more safety. For the commercial applicators and property owners, the best way for them to protect their small business is to use worse management practices. That is to say, over-apply. Thank you very much for the time today. Please support this bill.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Jenna.
All right.
2 minutes.
Chair, committee members, I'll
Introduce
keep
yourself for the
this
record and
brief.
proceed.
Yep. I'm Jenna Grove. I'm here to speak in support of the bill as introduced on behalf of Clean Water Action. I think Sue gave a good overview. There's been a lot of work done on this issue, and I think there might be some different opinions in terms of the scope of the liability. There might be some different opinions in terms of what constitutes negligence, but the one thing that folks aren't arguing about is the problem, right? The science is in. Nobody here is going to testify in support of increasing chloride contamination in our water. It's just a matter of how we're going to get there to accomplish what needs to be done. I hope that at minimum, we can implement this program statewide and give our rural winter maintenance professionals the same opportunity to reduce their use of sodium chloride-based de-icer, just like their metro counterparts do. But otherwise, I appreciate the time and hope you guys will also support the program.
Thanks for your testimony.
And finally, my final testifier will introduce himself, Tim with Landscaping, and I forgot his last name, so I apologize.
Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tim Malooly, and it would not be the first time someone hasn't remembered my last name. I've written this down to be brief and respectful of your time. But of course, I welcome your questions. Please pardon me while I look at my screen as well as look at each of you. I'm a servant leader of the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association, an organization of over 1,200 member companies and thousands of employees, including many companies that perform snow and ice management services. I own 3 companies myself, each focused on water use, reuse, management, and care. That's how I make my living. One company is a snow and ice practitioner, and our staff is out working this morning. The MNLA, a business trade association, my snow and ice specialty employees, and I as an individual are in favor of this piece of legislation as a preventive measure to incentivize snow and ice practitioners to help protect our water resources by voluntarily learning about best practices and implementing reasonable measures to demonstrate operating within the best practices. Since the program is voluntary, it's important to recognize human nature and to establish reasonable incentives to employers and employees to obtaining the education and to embed those practices into their services. As I mentioned earlier, each of my companies is focused on water use, reuse, management, and care. My employees and I experience firsthand the effects of over-application of chloride on surface waters. Your support and passage of this legislation is an excellent carrot-based approach to better managing our environment while also serving our population's needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're about out of time here, Representative Fischer, and we're going to take this up again this evening. And I'll invite everybody that wants to come, but for now, we're going to lay House File 1502 on the table for further discussion. And we're now going to recess until 6:45 this evening will be in 500 North this evening, so eat a good meal and we'll have a good discussion again. Thank you.